Hello, this is Dias and a new author's story from my channel Russian Revenge Story. Vasily looked around. He had promised himself once again that he needed to clean up, but these thoughts only came in the morning when he was getting ready for work, and in the evening he would come home with a bottle of vodka, quickly drink it, and fall asleep. He had been living at exactly this pace for a year, maybe a little more. Exactly from the moment Natasha left him and went off to the city for a better life. Vasily met her in a neighboring village at a disco. He had never seen her before. The girls were all over him because he was a handsome guy. In addition, he worked on a farm, as it was now fashionable to call former collective farms that had suddenly become private property. Vasily earned very well, and all because he was considered almost the best tractor driver, and combine operator. There was no equipment on the farm that he would not work well on. The men sighed and said that any metal obeyed Vaska. Vasily lived alone. The grandmother who raised him died as soon as he turned 18, as if she had been waiting for him specially. No one thought that the guy would return to the village again after finishing his studies. But he did. He built a big house, worked like a leper. He didn't look at the girls. He was determined to get on his feet first, so that he wouldn't be ashamed to bring his wife home. Since childhood, he understood what it was like to be underfed and underslept, because his grandmother was saving firewood, and the house was very cold. And then, when he saw Natasha, he almost went crazy. The wedding was held quickly. Natasha really liked the guy, and even more she liked that she could finally leave the large family where she was the eldest and therefore had to constantly help. He spoiled her a lot, bought her such outfits that had never been seen in the village. She got used to good things. She didn't do housework, because the skin on her hands, because it was hard, and many other reasons. They lived like this for 3 years. And one fine day his wife says, "Vasya, how long are we going to sit here? Everyone develops, moves to the city, and we are still rotting away in the village." Vasya didn't even understand what she was talking about. "I never said that I wanted to go to the city, and you didn't either. Why are you suddenly talking like this?" "Well, I definitely don't want to rot away in the village my whole life. I hope you're not going to make me do that?" Vasily raised his eyebrows. "I don't understand. You're from the village yourself. You've lived here your whole life. Where are you suddenly drawn to? Especially now. You can live happily ever after. Just wait. I'll bring water into the house. It will be just like a city apartment." Natasha stood up. She paced nervously around the room. "Lord, how impossible you are. What does water have to do with it? And what about theaters, cafes, culture, after all?" That day they had a fight. Vasily lost his temper first, called his wife names, and left. Of course, they made up later, and they never returned to the conversation. 3 weeks later, he didn't find Natasha when he returned from work. There was only a note on the table saying that she had met a man who understood her, with whom she would live in the city. Natasha also wrote that she had taken the money that Vasily had put in the box and said that it was compensation for the fact that she had spent her best years on him. From that day on, Vasya changed his lifestyle. First, he sold all his property, and then he neglected the house. No one had any idea what was happening to him for a while. Then rumors started to spread. He went to work, but he had already received a couple of warnings for his hangover, and he didn't answer for it. It's just that on that day, when he was talking to his boss, he took not half a liter, but 2 at once. Vasya sighed again, looked around. Oh, how he wanted to close his eyes to all this. A couple of times he even started to clean up, but the first time he came across Natasha's hairpin, and the second time, their wedding album. So he gave up. He went outside and shivered. It was so cold that his nose was stinging. He would have to tinker again to start his tractor. That's how many times he had argued with his boss about the guard not heating up their garage. Sorry. He shuddered. It was still dark outside, and he certainly didn't expect to hear an unfamiliar voice at this time, and in his own yard at that. He turned around abruptly, and in front of him stood either a woman or a girl, and behind her was a child huddled. My God, what are you doing here at such an early hour, in such cold, and with a child at that? The woman shrugged her shoulders vaguely. It just happened that way. Can you tell me if there's anyone I can stay with for a while? Vanka's really tired, but we don't have any money. Vasily tried to peer into her face. She seemed very young, although he could be wrong. Knowing his villagers, he could assume that they would rather call the local police officer than let some tramp stay. Vasya glanced quickly at the child, who was huddled close to the woman. The boy was no more than 5. Then he looked at his watch. No, he won't help in any way. If Vasya is late, everyone will immediately decide that he is late because he was drunk. He put his hand in his pocket and took out the house keys. Here, take it. Come to my house. I'll be back after 6. It's warm at home, and if you freeze, you can light the stove. There should be food too. Well, there should be, and God knows. But I have a mess there. I don't have time for everything. Don't stick your head out on the street, or you'll get a lot of questions. That's it. I'm off. I have no time. He gave the stunned stranger the keys and rushed along the path towards the garages. For some reason, the thought didn't even cross his mind that these people were strangers, that they could rob him. The day flew by quickly. Anxiety appeared towards evening, when he turned towards the store out of habit, but did not stop. He took his usual half-liter, though he added some candy, although he was not sure that the guests were still waiting for him. Maybe they warmed up and went on. The light was on in the house. It was so unusual, unfamiliar, that Vasily felt some kind of tightness in his chest. He carefully approached the window and looked into the house. Vasily's face lengthened. He saw only part of the room, but it was enough to understand that it was in perfect order. Everything was so neat and clean. A young woman and a boy were sitting under a blanket on the sofa, looking at some book. Vasya looked closely and sighed sadly. At one time, when there was still hope that Natasha would give birth to him, he bought up all the children's books in the stores, and now they were gathering dust in piles near the sofa on the floor. When his wife left, he wanted to throw them away, but his hand did not rise. And there was also a smell of food coming from the house, such a forgotten smell that Vasily involuntarily swallowed. He looked at the bottle in his hands and quickly shoved it into the snow. The young woman jumped up when he entered, blushed. Hello. Excuse me, Vanyusha and I were a bit busy with the housework. I cooked dinner. Vasya himself was confused. He had no idea that the tramp he had pitied in the morning could turn out to be a very pretty young woman. I wouldn't mind having dinner. I'm terribly hungry. She rushed to set the table, and Vasily took off his shoes, undressed and went to the boy, holding out his hand to him. Vasily. The boy smiled and carefully held out his hand. Ivan. Here, take it. Little ones love sweets. The boy looked questioningly at the woman. She nodded her head slightly, and only after that did the child take the treat. Vasily sat down at the table, inhaled the aroma of hot borscht, and even closed his eyes with pleasure. Only after the plate was empty, he looked at the guest, who was waiting for his words. It was incredibly delicious. She smiled. Thank you. It was the least we could do for you. But a shadow passed over her face. Perhaps we should move on. We have already abused your hospitality. Vasily raised his eyebrows in surprise. Are you in a hurry somewhere? No, we have nowhere to hurry. Nastya, that was the name of the young woman, came out to him from the room where she was putting Vanya to bed an hour later. She sat down at the table. Vasya stood up, poured tea for her and himself. She thanked him and looked at him with huge blue eyes. Don't get me wrong, we're not homeless. It's just that everything worked out somehow wrong. Once I went to study and made a big mistake by trusting one guy. No, I don't regret anything, because I have Vanya. But I had to go back to the village to my mother, who at that time had married a younger man. My mother was not happy about my return. As I later understood, she was worried about her young husband. Vanya was born, everything seemed to have returned to normal, although I couldn't go to work because my mother hung the entire household on me. It's not particularly pleasant to live without your own money, but Vanya, my so-called stepfather, bought everything, and I didn't need anything. And then my stepfather decided that my mother was too old for him, and I was much better suited. I sent him away right away. Forgive me. But my mother somehow found out everything, decided that it was only my fault. After all, I was wagging my tail in front of him, and my biological mother and stepfather decided that they needed my Vanyusha to complete their family, and they needed to kick me out. My mother said that she would deprive me of my parental rights in a jiffy. I don't have a job, I'm sitting on their neck. Everything else can be thought up. So I ran away with Vanyusha. But I'm sure that they will look for us. My mother won't calm down just like that. Vasya twirled his spoon thoughtfully. Look, Nastya, live with me for now, until we think of something. I'm hardly ever home, so you won't bother me at all, and I'll find out what's going on. In a week, Vasya even forgot that he used to drink in the evenings. Now he was making things with Vanya, and they read together, and the house was clean and warm. Nastya spoiled them with delicious dinners. This was exactly the kind of life Vasily had always dreamed of. It's just a shame that all this wasn't his. Once he was hurrying home from work, and his neighbor called out to him. What? Can I congratulate you? He even got scared. What for? Well, your Natasha came back. It's been 2 hours already. Vasya turned pale. Nastya and Vanya are there. He ran home. Natasha was sitting on the couch in a beautiful pose. She looked at him offended. Neither Nastya nor Vanya were there. Where are they? Natasha pursed her lips offendedly. I don't understand. Where is the joy from our meeting? She was confident in herself and her charms. Vasya covered the distance to the couch in 2 steps and jerked her up. Where are they? She screamed in fear. How should I know? We went somewhere, I don't know, probably home. Vasya let her go and rushed to the door. He stopped at the door, so that when I return, your spirit is gone. Natasha looked at him in surprise and understood that he was not joking. But how is that possible? She was sure that Vasya would burst into tears of joy. Vasily understood that an hour had passed, maybe more. They could have gone far away. It was already dark outside. Where could they be? Lord, what kind of punishment is this? He ran through the village towards the garages, almost praying that the boss would be there. He would have taken the equipment anyway and let them put him in jail. The boss was there, listened to Vasya's confused story, and nodded towards his jeep. Here, take it. It has better cross-country ability than your tractor, and the speed, of course. Thank you, Sergeyevich. I'll be quick. Go ahead, whistle if you need help. Yes, I will do everything to bring back the person who brought you back to life. Vasily saw them under a tree, 5 kilometers from the village, slammed on the brakes, and rushed toward them. Nastya, what are you doing? You don't think about yourself, but you should think about Vanyusha. Nastya was sobbing on his shoulder. You see, she said that she is your wife, that you love her. And she also said that people like us have no right to live at all. Nastya said a lot more, and Vasya hugged her and Vanya and thought only about how happy he was and that nothing had happened to them. When the flow of tears died down a little, Vasya said decisively, "We'll file a complaint tomorrow. I'll keep an eye on you so that you don't do anything else." Nastya didn't object. She just hugged him tighter. Vanya smiled and asked, "Will you be my dad?" It turns out like this. Vanya looked at him for a minute, then hugged him and his mother with his little arms. On the day they got married, guests came to visit them, Nastya's mother and her husband. "Well, hello, Vanya, get ready quickly, it's time for us to go home. And I hope they'll assign this loose woman to the right place." Nastya turned pale. Vanya pressed himself against her. Vasily stood up. "Who are you? That you showed up at my house without knocking?" The woman glanced at him. "We are this one's parents. She probably sang all sorts of nonsense to you, some drunk loose woman. Don't believe her." "One more word about my wife. I don't care that you're a woman." She hiccuped. "Who?" "Wife, this is my son. The adoption process is almost over." It was quiet for a minute, then the door slammed. It was the mother's young husband who came out, and she rushed after him. If you liked the story, please support me with a like. And to learn about the release of new, interesting stories, subscribe to my channel. All the best to you. Thank you for watching.